Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. I trust you had a great weekend, plenty going on. I must say I had a rather nice time swimming in the pool at the Thai Club. I feel very refreshed. I'd like to thank Bonnie Tunya for having me on his show. He's terribly erudite and always interesting to talk with. Macro thoughts. This is a tweet of a series of tweets from Julian Assange. Greetings from Barcelona, he tweeted. He has his own agenda, or a third party's agenda in point of fact. Good Bitcoin morning. The price of Bitcoin is up almost 50% from its flash crash mid-September. This caught my attention. RDC Sud Kivu, le plus vieux gorille abattu par le braconnier. Il avait 50 ans. He was 50 years old. What an awful sight, isn't it? And then my piece over the weekend refers to The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot. Let me read it to you. Mr. Kurtz, he dead. A penny for the old guy. We are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw, alas. Our dried voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. Shape without form, shade without color, paralyzed force, gesture without emotion. Those who have crossed with direct eyes to death's other kingdom remember us, if at all, not as lost violent souls, but only as the hollow men, the stuffed men. Eyes I dare not meet in dreams in death's dream kingdom, these do not appear. There the eyes are sunlight on a broken column. There is a tree swinging and the voices are in the wind singing, more distant and more solemn than a fading star. Let me be no nearer in death's dream kingdom. Let me also wear such deliberate disguises, rat's coat, crow's skin, crossed staves in a field, behaving as the wind behaves no nearer. Not that final meeting in the twilight kingdom. This is the dead land, this is cactus land. Here the stone images are raised, here they receive the supplication of a dead man's hand under the twinkle of a fading star. It is like this in death's other kingdom, walking alone, at the hour when we are trembling with tenderness, lips that would kiss form prayers to broken stone. The eyes are not here, there are no eyes here. In this valley of dying stars, in this hollow valley, this broken jaw of our lost kingdoms. In this last of meeting places, we grope together and avoid speech, gathered on this beach of this tumid river. Sightless unless the eyes reappear as the perpetual star multifoliate rose of death's twilight kingdom, the hope only of empty men. Here we go round the prickly pear, prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go round the prickly pear at 5 o'clock in the morning. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom. Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. Life is very long. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom. For thine is, life is, for thine is this is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And that poem made me think about my article over the weekend, which was called Living in a Populist World, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds is an early study of crowd psychology by Charles Mackay, first published in 1841. Men, it has been well said, think in herds. It will be seen that they go mad in herds, while they only recover their senses slowly, one by one. Populism, populists, populist policy making, and extraordinary popular delusions have in fact been around for a very long time. Among the bubbles or financial manias described by Mackay are the South Sea Company bubble of 1711 to 1720, the Mississippi Company bubble of 1719 to 1720, and the Dutch tulip mania of the early 17th century. According to Mackay, during this bubble, speculators from all walks of life bought and sold tulip bulbs and even futures contracts on them. Allegedly, some tulip bulb varieties briefly became the most expensive objects in the world during 1637. A wave of populism has crisscrossed the world. As we scan the world today, we can confirm a populist has captured the White House. In the United Kingdom, populism saw Brexit win its referendum and was best described by David Osler thus: I'm going to cancel Netflix and negotiate with each film producer separately to get the best deal for me and my family. Brexit. President Putin, of course, is the arch-populist, but Erdogan, Duterte, Narendra Modi are all mini-me's to Vladimir. Populist policy-making reminded me of a passage from T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom, between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response falls the shadow. Life is very long, between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom. The shadow to which T.S. Eliot is referring is this: President Trump's tax cut is presented as good for the average American taxpayer, but it patently is skewed in favor of the 1%. Narendra Modi's attempt to cleanse the black market economy via the extinguishing of banknotes was an abject failure. Duterte's red and tooth and claw assassination program against drug dealing has trampled over any human rights. The King of Saudi Arabia has generously allowed women to drive themselves around from 2018. Just let that sink in. President Trump, in his mind-boggling speech at UNGA, said this of Venezuela: the problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented. Change the word socialism for populism, and in fact Caracas is the harbinger of the direction in which the world is heading. I will leave the last words to Charles Mackay. Of all the offspring of time, error is the most ancient, and is so old and familiar an acquaintance, that truth, when discovered, comes upon most of us like an intruder, and meets the intruder's welcome. Political reflections. Would you like to talk? We have lines of communications to Pyongyang. We're not in a dark situation, a blackout, said Rex Tillerson. The disclosure by the US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson during a trip to China represented the first time he has spoken to such an extent about US outreach to North Korea over its pursuit of a nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missile. We are probing to stay tuned, Tillerson told a group of reporters in Beijing. We ask, would you like to talk? We have lines of communication to Pyongyang. We're not in a dark situation, a blackout. We can talk to them, we do talk to them, he said. Then President Trump undercut that narrative. I told Rex Tillerson, our wonderful Secretary of State, that he is wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man. Save your energy, Rex. We'll do what has to be done, he said. Ian Bremner called it the stupidest tweet on national security I've ever seen from a sitting head of state. Then Trump said, being nice to Rocket Man hasn't worked in 25 years. Why should it work now? Clinton failed, Bush failed, Obama failed. I won't fail, he said. Bloomberg has an interesting piece how the US would defend itself against a nuclear attack by North Korea. The two women who were accused of murdering Kim Jong-nam, the estranged half-brother of Kim Jong-un, have arrived at their trial in Malaysia. They pled not guilty. Now, the big development was in Catalonia. Catalans signaled they may declare independence within a week. Catalan President Charles Puigdemont appealed to the European Union for support as he pledged to inform the regional parliament of the result of the vote in the coming days. The Assembly will then act in line with the referendum law, Puigdemont said, and that could lead to a unilateral declaration of independence within 48 hours of the notification. The citizens of Catalonia won the right to have an independent state, he said in a televised statement. Catalan government says 90% of the vote voted to leave Spain. Rajoy says the Catalan ballot is void, defending the police crackdown. And here's a photograph that Julian Assange posted on Friday, Barcelona, ahead of Catalonia's independence referendum on Sunday. And here from Frank Hook is a list of the other separatist movements in Western Europe. This is a PR nightmare for Rajoy. Venezuela even blasted Spain's Rajoy over repression in Catalonia. I don't think this genie is going to be able to be put back in its bottle. Therefore, it introduces new political risk, fragmentation risk to the euro, which is what I was alluding to last week, and why we've seen a sharp drop in the euro. International markets, the massive hedge fund betting on artificial intelligence's chief executive officer, one of the world's largest hedge funds, Luke Ellis, prides himself on a healthy appetite for risk. My job, he says, is not to blink. I like that. Very interesting article, well worth reading. An estimated 90% of all data in existence today were created in the past 2 years. Man Group stores thousands of terabytes of data, equivalent to more than 10,000 standard PCs. From stock ticker information to weather forecasts to the movements of container ships. Meanwhile, the price of stockpiling information has plummeted. A gigabyte of storage cost $300,000 in 1981, and compared to 10 cents today, the data is cheaper than it used to be. The availability of data is enormous. The cost of storage is essentially irrelevant, says Sandy Rattray, Man Group's chief investment officer. How to use it, that's hard. IBEX, when I first checked this morning, was down 1.7% after the Catalan referendum. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro has fallen sharply. It was above 118 closing on Friday. It's now at 117.35. Dollar index back above 93.50 again. This time I think we're going to hold it. Japanese yen 112.94, Swiss franc 0.9713, the pound 133.20, the Australian dollar 0.7799, India rupee 65.425, South Korean won 11.4817, the Real 316.39, Egyptian pound 17.6257, South African rand 13.6380. Euro dollar, we're now at 117.36. Take a look at this chart. My target is 114.50. Dollar index, that key level is 93.50. I think we're going to actually now move beyond it effectively. Stock picker who snared a 7,000% Hong Kong return eyes his next win. Sunny Optical Technology Group has returned about 7,000% to his team at Allianz Global Investors. The next big winner, in his view, is Deutsche Pfandbriefbank. And he's also saying he's looking at companies he's keen on digital derivatives, stocks he defines as second and third tier beneficiaries of the rise of e-commerce. Interesting. Commodity markets, WTI is at $51.61. I still think we're actually likely to go up to 55 before we go down. Gold coming off the boil big time now, 1272.70. I like this tuna crudo as one of many pricey appetizers on offer. It looks very tasty. Mongolia has finished third quarter as Asia's, I'm guessing, the world's best performer. I'm not sure if it's done better than Zimbabwe, but we'll find out. At least 8 killed in English-speaking Cameroon protests. At least 8 people were killed during protests in towns across western Cameroon on Sunday, as residents of the mainly English-speaking regions defied a ban on public gatherings and demanded independence from the rest of the largely Francophone nation. This has been brewing for quite a while. President Paul Biya, who's 84, ordered a waiver of arrests earlier this year after lawyers and teachers in English-speaking areas protested the dominance of the French language in courts and schools throughout the northwest and southwest regions which border Nigeria. Congo warlord seeks to unite rebel factions in anti-Kabila alliance for years. William Yakutumba did what many militia leaders in eastern Congo do. He occupied a pocket of territory while running rackets based on gold smuggling, arms trafficking, and taxing civilians abandoned by an absent state. Since June, however, his men have engaged in a hit-and-run insurgency against the army. Last week, in a dramatic escalation, they attacked the lakeside town of Uvira from surrounding hills and by motorized pirogue from Lake Tanganyika. UN peacekeepers helped beat them back with heavy machine guns after some government troops fled, with UN helicopters sinking several rebel boats. Yakutumba, who fought alongside the army against Rwandan troops in earlier wars, is spearheading an attempt to unify disparate eastern rebel factions into a force that can oust President Kabila, who refused to step down when his second and final term in office expired last year. The deputy commander of the UN force was dispatched to Uvira to rally UN troops and encourage the army to stand and fight. Congo has also dispatched its top general Didier Tumba to the front. During a stopover on Thursday in the eastern city of Goma, Tumba downplayed the rebel threat. It's a flash in the pan and we're going to put it out, he told reporters. Let's see. Turkey has opened a $50 million military base in Somalia, Ankara's largest overseas facility. South African oil shares up 9.73% so far this year. Dollar versus rand continues to weaken, now at 13.6380. Egyptian pound 17.6257. Nigerian President Buhari visited the northeastern city of Maiduguri on Sunday to meet with troops deployed against Boko Haram. Nigerian oil shares up 31.87% so far this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 37.71% so far this year. Zimbabwe inflates under this dollarized regime. Zimbabwe's fiscal authorities could no longer demand that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe supply the government with credit reprint money. This hard budget constraint became too onerous for the free spending government to abide by. In consequence, Zimbabwe's government has employed Harry Houdini's magic and circumvented the hard budget constraint imposed by dollarization. It has done so by creating a new fake dollar, which is referred to as the new Zim dollar. Not surprisingly, this new Houdini creation is rapidly becoming worthless. This makes the methodology that I employed to measure inflation during Zimbabwe's hyperinflation episode relevant again. Since Old Mutual's price on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is denominated in new Zim dollars, and Old Mutual's price on the London Stock Exchange is denominated in British pounds sterling, we can create a new Zim dollar sterling implied exchange rate. This exchange rate can be transformed using PPP to accurately measure Zimbabwe's inflation. At present, Zimbabwe's annual inflation rate is soared to 242.72%. Hence the panic on the streets. Tanzania says newspaper banned for 3 months for false quotes. Tanzania banned a Swahili language newspaper for 3 months after the weekly alleged fabricated quotes and attributed them to President John Magufuli. The IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, said more legislation isn't necessary to hold the election on October the 26th, and that the proposed changes would place the commission on a precarious situation. Kenyatta told a campaign rally Friday that the proposed electoral law changes will guarantee transparency by preventing malpractice. Deputy President William Ruto, speaking at the same event, said the vote will go ahead as planned. Kenyans will go to polls on October 26th, whether Mr. Odinga participates or not, he said. This is an attempt by Jubilee at changing the rules of the game midstream. The effect of this grandstanding is further polarizing the country, which may lead to violent confrontations. Kenya's Eurobonds have lost investors 1.3% since September the first court decision, making them the worst performers in Africa. Inflation dropped to 7.06% in September on easing food and electricity prices. This was bound to happen. Cost of living measures down from 8.04 in August. Between August and September, food and non-alcoholic drinks index decreased by 1.28%. Carrots dropped by the biggest margin of 32% to an average 67 shillings a kilo, while a similar quantity of cabbages dipped 13%. Tomatoes, however, continue to rise, crossing the 100 shilling for the first time this year, with a kilo retailing at 103. Data from the Communications Authority of Kenya shows that Safaricom had an 80.4% share of voice traffic, up from 75.7% the previous year. Safaricom is up a total of 34.3% on a total return basis, trading on a trailing P of 20.455, and there's excitement around about a possible foray into Ethiopia, which is yet to be confirmed. If you want to have a listen to an interview I did with Bob Collymore around the time of the full year results, take a listen to that. Nakumatt has closed its Junction branch in Nairobi, closed even as the retailer banks on cash injection from a new strategic investor to address its frequent stockouts at its outlets. In a public notice released Sunday, the cash-strapped retailer said it had relinquished its rights over the premises pursuant to a surrender dated September 15, 2017. The premises will be closed to the public from October the 1st, and no trading will be permitted at the premises. Furthermore, in my opinion, the Tuskys-Nakumatt merger is an Alice in Wonderland idea. Status of the yield curve, that's from Apex Capital via Kenya Wall Street. Kenya shilling 103.285. Nairobi all share up 21.65% so far this year. NEC 20 up 17.74% so far this year. We've been in this interregnum period where the market has been soft and trading volumes have really collapsed. But I think buy Safaricom, that's one thing that you can do.